So I want to talk a little bit about the president of CNN, Jeff Zucker, resigning. And I want to talk about three things that I've been thinking about that I hope in some way can add some value to the quality of your life. By the way, welcome back again to my channel, guys. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you're okay. I hope your family's okay. I hope you're keeping well. And as I say, thank you very much for joining me. I want to talk a little bit about the president of CNN, Jeff Zucker, who recently resigned, and there were some things that were said about him and the reasons why, and he basically put out an article about why it is that he resigned. And I was reading about this and I was thinking about some things regarding this that I wanted to share with you. Maybe in some way it can add value to the quality of your life. Maybe in some way it can help you think about something in your life that can help you to become a higher, fuller expression of who you're capable of becoming. But before we get into that, guys, if you want to help me get to 1,000 subscribers by June, please can you like and subscribe to my channel? You would be an absolute legend. Okay, cool. So let's go in through this. So I wrote down three things. The first thing that I wrote down here is the biggest danger to your husband is going to come from their work. I wrote this down because this is something that I've noticed tends to be a common theme amongst men who are succeeding sort of in terms of their career. And one of the things that I've realized, and is something that I recommend to couples and I recommend to people, particularly when it comes to pre-marriage counseling, is there has to be times in your marriage when you've got to protect your marriage. And one of the times that you've got to protect your marriage is when your husband starts, either becomes a regional director, either becomes a manager, becomes one of the partners in an organization. But essentially when your partner is in a very influential role within an organization, because most affairs, most problems that are going to cause the breakdown of your family are going to come from somebody within a place where your husband 9 times out of 10 works. Obviously that also means that as men we've got to protect ourselves, because the more what I've noticed is that the more successful you become as a man, the more women are going to approach us, right? And the breakdown of the family usually happens, of course, in many cases when we as men give into our impulses, we cheat, we start an affair, and it causes all kinds of problems. And in this particular case, one of the issues that it caused for the president of CNN is that he was married before, then he got divorced, and then he's having this affair, but he didn't disclose it to his organization, right? And now it's caused for him to get into a situation where he's having to quit his job. And one of the things that I share with people is that the only thing that can destroy your success is your character, right? A lot of people, what destroys what they've built isn't usually some enemy coming in and actually destroying everything, or their haters destroying it. It is usually them. They've either cheated, they've either done a deal behind closed doors, they've done something which has in some way compromised their character, which has been the sort of one of the stones, or one of the foundations that has led them down a path where they've lost everything. So I would say to you, one of the things that's really important is to figure out and understand that there's going to be a lot of things that are going to come, that are going to be problems within your relationship, whether it be communication, whether it be deciding how many times you want to have sex, whether it be deciding whether you send your children to private school or not. You're going to have those problems, but there are also going to be problems outside of your marriage that are going to cause issues. There are going to be dangers. There's going to be minefields that are going to be dangerous to your relationship. And the thing that I would persuade you to think about, maybe which you haven't thought about, is number one, do you know what those things that could potentially get into your marriage and kind of make it weak and make it vulnerable and be a danger to your marriage, and have you identified them, and then have you protected yourself against them, right? What could those be? Those could be, for example, you hanging around with single people or divorced people. We know that if you are spending the majority of your time around people who are divorced, the chances, if you, for example, are having problems within your relationship, those friends are not going to say to you, stick to your marriage. Those friends are going to say to you, no, you should get divorced. It's so much better divorced, right? That's a danger to your marriage. Instead, you want to be having people around you who say to you, no, you need to go to counseling, you need to go to couples counseling, you need to go to individual therapy, you need to go back to your marriage and work things out. And you've got to start thinking about this kind of stuff. And I say that both as a husband and both as a wife. You both got to work on protecting your marriage, right? Part of life is building and part of life is also protecting. And a lot of people build, but they don't protect. And it's just, as I was looking at this whole case, it's just something that I was thinking about, and I would urge you to think about in your own life. The second thing that I wrote down here is that, what did I write down? I wrote down that be careful of ascending too quickly. In other words, be careful of taking the elevator of success. Because one of the things that is been caused a lot of problems amongst this whole situation is around Alison, who is the woman who Jeff was sort of seeing within the organization. And one of the things that I've been noticing a lot of people are talking about is how she started off as a public relations advisor, right, a PR advisor, and she managed to get to a position where she's the executive vice president and chief marketing officer, right? That is obviously quite a tremendous jump for somebody to go from a PR advisor to the executive vice president and a chief marketing officer of CNN, right? I mean, that is a huge leap. It is a huge jump for somebody to go from there to there. And questions are being asked around, how did she get there? Did Jeff obviously position certain things in order to get her there? And I guess what I'm trying to say to you is this. The more successful you become, or the more ambitious you are, there is a temptation to try to take the elevator of success. There's a temptation to want to take the quick road to success. But the issue that you're going to have with it is that people don't trust people who become successful really quickly. Because most of us know, I say most of us because there's always an exception to every rule. Most of us pretty much know that to get to the top, to get to become the very best, to reach the highest echelons of life is difficult, is hard. You have to put in hours and hours and hours and years of dedication before you get to that kind of position, right? Obviously, there's other things that are factored in, networking, who you know, right, luck. There's multiple factors that come into it. But a huge reason why people get to the top and become the very best is they've worked for a very long time to get there. And when you get people who come from a very low position and they reach a very high position, people start being very cautious, especially if those people in some way are very close to people who are in very high positions. And so the thing that I would say to you is, are you being tempted in some way to try and take the quick road to success? And I know we could get into an argument where you say, well, Kasim, if an opportunity arises where I can go up towards, I can become more successful really quickly, of course I'm going to take it. But yes, but you have to think strategically about this, because if you take it, right, are you going to lose credibility? Now you might say, well, Kasim, I don't care, because as long as I get there, as long as I'm successful, that's all that matters. No, it doesn't. Because you can become successful, but you're not being respected. You're not recognized for the position that you hold, right? People are actually talking about you behind your back. Now, you might say, well, Kasim, I don't care what people say behind my back, but you should. Because the issue that you're going to have is if people don't recognize your hard work and they don't recognize you as a legitimate winner, what will end up happening is they will sabotage you. They will try in any way to find a way to basically get you back down to the position that you're supposed to be at, right? And at your most prime, at your most peak, when everything is going perfect, that is when people will attempt to sabotage you and bring you back down to basically where you should have been. And it's important to think about that. And it won't be when you are expecting it. It won't be when you're stable and you know everything and you're prepared. It will be when you're vulnerable. It will be when you're right at the peak of everything that you have. I say to people all the time that karma waits. Karma waits until everything is perfect in your life, and that's when it goes and it strikes. Karma usually doesn't strike when when everything is going bad in your life or where you have nothing to lose. Karma comes into your life when you have something to lose, because then it levels life out. And obviously that's a philosophical thought that I'm talking about, and you obviously will have to think about that in a philosophical way. But I think it's really important to understand that trying to take the elevator of success may get you there very, very quickly, but it has a cost. There's a residual cost that comes with it. Think about that. And the last thing that I wanted to share with you is that no one was saying anything. Funnily enough, this story about Jeff Zucker having an affair with Alison, or certainly having these relations with Alison, was actually put into the newspapers and was published back in January. No, was it January or February? I think it was late January. But it hasn't reached mainstream media until now. And obviously they talk about the fact that one of the reasons why this didn't happen is because a lot of people didn't really want to lose their jobs, right? If you're a reporter for CNN and your boss is the guy who pays your bills, who could fire you in an instant and could stop you from working at any network, you have to be really, really careful. And this just goes to show you how much influence a lot of the media is not being... It shows you how much of the media that you're reading is not the media that you think it is, but all of it has an agenda behind it. Because a lot of networks, a lot of people, a lot of reporters and journalists knew about this story, yet nobody wanted to write it, yet nobody wanted to put it in the papers, right? Nobody wanted to blow it up. Obviously, CNN is a huge company which employs thousands and thousands of people. And you're saying to me that nobody knew? According to the reports that I've read, loads of people knew about this. A woman even wrote in her book about she was very suspecting of what was happening. And here's where it gets really interesting. The only reason why Jeff actually came out and said all of this stuff was because he was forced to. Right? There was an investigation that was happening, and he was forced to admit that there was some kind of relationship that was going on with one of his employees, right? And so the question that then we have to think about is how much stuff is not being reported because people are scared to lose their job. How much stuff? Now, I'm saying this to you because you have to really think about this kind of stuff, because a lot of us don't realize that we consume mainstream information, whether it be run walks, whether it be news, whether it be entertainment. But many of us don't realize that there is an agenda behind it. There is an intention behind it. There are people who are pulling strings to leverage getting certain information out to the general public, right? Whether it be a political message, whether it be a certain kind of belief system. Do you understand that there are people who are operating from that space? Because if you don't understand that, then you're being manipulated. You may be being manipulated and you don't even realize it. And again, I'm talking from a more controversial kind of perspective, and I'm talking more from a conspiracist kind of perspective. But I think it's important for you to understand that. Because there are people... Look, if you have an organization and you have a company like CNN, which is huge, which impacts millions of people, you're going to have an agenda. There's going to be people pushing you to do certain messages, certain stories, not to publish certain stories, which means that if let's say the only news stations you watch are CNN, that means that the content, your viewpoint, your ideology is all filtered in one direction, right? And do you notice that? If the only paper you read is the Daily Telegraph, if the only paper you read is the Sun, that means that because there is an agenda behind the paper, it means that you're only being portrayed one side and not the whole view. Right? You're not being given the whole context. You're not being given every side of the story. And so I say this to you to start thinking in your own life, okay, what else is there to this story? Why am I reading about it now? Why is it being put on the news? Why not other stories? What is their intention? Why is it that the editor of CNN, of the Sun, of the Daily Telegraph has decided to publish this? For what reason? They have hundreds of stories which they could publish. Why this story? Why are they trying to get this? Is it because, for me, Is it because they're trying to add value to me, or is it because they're doing it in the best interest of the company, or because they're being persuaded to publish certain articles because of pressure that they're feeling from shareholders, from investors, or whoever it may be? And I just think it's really important for us to take accountability of that and really think about that. But I don't know, maybe you disagree with me, maybe you've taken away different things from this story. I'm always keen to hear your perspective and to hear your thoughts. So comment below, send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. Again, if you want to help me get to 1,000 subscribers by June, guys, please like and subscribe to my channel. You would be an absolute legend. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.